This is CW InfoSec, and today we're joined by a special guest. For some people, life is easy. For most of us, it kicks us down, it spits in our faces, and continually tries to upset plans that we set for ourselves. Whether we are able to overcome those challenges or not is entirely dependent on us and how bad we want success. Chris Inzinga is like most of us. From his roots as an Eagle Scout in Boy Scouts of America, studying at institutions like West Point and NHTI, earning widely respected certifications like OSCP, EWPT, Security Plus, and many more, to earning enough money in bug bounties to purchase 125 years of Burp Pro licenses. Chris has continually grinded his bones into dust. He is a leading example that life's challenges don't have to keep us down. We can face those challenges head on, we can see them, and we can conquer them. Good afternoon, Chris.
Good afternoon. Happy to be here. It was quite the introduction. It's like my autobiography has already been written for me, I guess. So,
perhaps.
Yeah.
Well, for those that may not have heard of you, tell us a little about yourself. What's the life of Synzinga like?
Yeah, so my name is Chris. As mentioned, my username online is Inzinga. I often go by that in bug bounty work and other stuff like my GitHub. I'm 23 years old. I'm a student studying information technology. When I'm not doing cybersecurity stuff, which is kind of like my passion, so in all my free time, I'm learning and trying different things. When I'm not doing that, I like the outdoors, and I like to actually brew my own beer. So that's kind of like a fun fact about me.
That's a cool side hobby.
Yeah. It's good to have a hobby that's not just always in front of the computer, I find.
How did you get into that?
Into brewing?
Yeah.
So it was a few years back. It was like a Christmas gift, just one of those small kits. I believe my mother got it for me. And kind of from there, it's just, gone bigger and become a weekly occurrence or bi-weekly occurrence. We'll, try new flavors, and it's fun. It passes the time. Yeah.
So, what do you currently do, aside from home brewing and, grinding for all of these certifications? What do you currently do, and what originally sparked your interest in information security?
Yeah, so I guess what originally sparked my interest, I guess, is I'm sure like a lot of people in the field, at a young age, I kind of had an affinity for computers and was always interested in messing with the settings and all that type stuff. And I can remember as early back as like kind of the first few years of high school, I kind of got into it a bit more with like Linux and stuff and playing around with virtual machines. But then moving into college for a few years, I kind of lost that passion. I ended up studying chemical engineering for a few years until I ended up transferring schools and switching degrees. And really in the last 18 months to year and a half, I've rediscovered that passion for cybersecurity, beginning with, as you mentioned, like Security Plus, and I have my CEH. And then I discovered the world of practical certifications and hands-on certifications. And from there it was game over. I earned like eLearn's junior penetration tester, rolled into my OSCP, some red team certifications, and finally some web certifications. From there, I kind of dabbled in finding some CVEs. I actually worked with you on one or two of those. We have some responsible disclosures together. And then most recently, it was kind of back in end of March, early April, I decided to try my hand at bug bounty hunting. And it's kind of funny. Originally, I was in that thought group of people that kind of saw bug bounty hunting as, a way for companies to outsource their security and underpay people. Like I kind of had a negative perception of it. So I thought, all right, I'm going to do 30 days of bug bounty hunting. And, after those 30 days, I'll write a blog post on my blog and kind of reflect on it. And I didn't get around to writing that blog post till like 100 days had passed just because I was having so much fun. And, every single day it became kind of an obsession. So now, in addition to going to school, I try to hunt bugs every day, and I'm active on bug bounty platforms.
Is everything still a feature?
Yes. Yeah, it's a feature, not a bug. Won't fix.
Okay, so what's a normal day like for you doing bug bounties? Because some people might have a perception of it, it being similar to pen testing, but that may not be the case. So what's your experience been like?
Yeah, so normal day for me. I like to wake up early-ish. Like sometimes I'll start hunting at like 6 a.m. in the morning. I find that just my most productive hours are from 6 till like noon or in the morning. I really don't like staying up late and doing, like hacker stuff in the basement with all the lights off. I like to get it done in the morning. So I'll wake up and I'll start hunting for bugs. Um, yeah, that's really it. I try to do it all in the morning. If I have classes or anything, it's good to get out of the way. Or if I want to work out in the afternoon, I try to do all my hunting in the mornings. Yeah.
So, do you have any successful stories that you can share with us?
Yeah. So one that stands out for me in my mind, it's kind of one of my proudest bug finds or bugs found plural. It was on a program that it wasn't new, but I had just been invited to it. I think the program itself had been running for maybe 2 years, and it was riddled with like cross-site scripting bugs, but every single one of them was duplicates. I mean, I still submitted them because those are valid findings, and I spent a few weeks on this program, and I ended up finding kind of a new area that I thought had been less explored. Just by changing my users like permissions, I was able to access this different area. And I was kind of looking at Burp Suite requests, and in one of the requests, I see a parameter called query. That's like query equals, I see the word where, from.
Well, that's a little interesting.
I'm like, oh, query, and there's SQL syntax in it. So, fire up SQL map, and sure enough, it's a SQL injection. And I spend the next 2 or 3 days on this site, and I end up finding 14 vulnerable SQL injection parameters, just on like this little subdomain. And the program had been running for 2 years, and there had been no reported SQL injections before. So that was just kind of like, even though it's an old program, you can find all these bugs and like these good paying critical bugs. And it was like really obvious parameters. Like I mentioned, query. The other ones all ended in ID. It was like user ID, job ID, applicant ID. It was like just
they're like, hey, put stuff right here, here. Hello,
much,
Chris.
Yeah, it's just yelling at me to test, and so that kind of stands out as like the best story. So of those 14, they ended up accepting, I think, 4 of them, just because underlying issue for a lot of them was the same. But I mean, still, it was good to have those accepted.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any failures that stood out as major learning experiences?
Oh yeah, like most of my early submissions were all failures. Like sometimes I'll go back and look at my report, and just the reporting quality. Like for one of them, I just kind of pretty much ran Burp Pro's active scan and saw there was like a CORS misconfiguration, but I like had no value or anything. And I just kind of like, I was throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticked in those early days. So I've learned a lot from that and gotten a lot better. But yeah, there are definitely some subpar reports early on.
What do you think has been the biggest thing that you've changed since doing bug bounties, just on terms of turning things that you weren't comfortable doing into things that now you've gotten a little better at?
So I think, yeah, kind of touching on that, like my early reports, that's one thing that's changed a lot for me is the report quality. Now I really do like to take the time and like put pride to my little mini bug write-ups. I have a description, I have impact, steps to reproduce. I try to include remediation. So I've definitely seen improvement there. And like in all my little screenshots, I'll put little red boxes and stuff to highlight what to look at. So I have fun with it.
That's awesome.
Include little videos, like POC recording videos. So I've tried to up that area a lot, make these reports digestible. And then also, yeah, just you gain more experience. Every time you find a new class of bug, that's like really exciting for me. Like the first time I found XXE, I was really excited, and just really like learning about new types of bugs and then trying to implement that into my methodology and find one, hopefully. So
following up on this, penetration testing has a pretty well established path for, in terms of like education or experience that one would need to get into a position like that, but that path isn't as well defined for bug bounties. What are your thoughts on pursuing college or certifications for bug bounties? Do you see any value in them, or maybe there's things that those institutions could change? What are your thoughts on it?
So I think for where it differs, at least that I see, is for penetration testing and kind of getting a job in cybersecurity. I feel that college and certifications are almost a prerequisite. Like if you don't have a degree, at least an associate's or a bachelor's degree, and you don't have the OSCP, at least, I'm not in the field, so I can't fully speak for this, but I don't really think you have a good chance at getting one of those jobs. And so that's what's kind of nice about bug bounty is it's just approachable to everyone. Like I've mentioned, I'm still working on a degree, and yeah, I have a few certifications, but I could have started this without them. So they're by no means necessary for bug bounty if you want to get started.
There are many different bug bounty programs available these days, and I know you had told me a few of yours, but what made Synap and BugCrowd stand out for you over other programs like HackerOne?
Yeah, so when I was getting started, I was kind of active on both HackerOne and BugCrowd starting out. But as I'd previously mentioned, a lot of my original findings were just garbage that weren't really that good. And when you get a bug marked as NA, like not applicable on HackerOne, they send you this email that it's like, hey, we noticed that this bug was marked NA. Have you considered reading like How to Hack 101 to find more legitimate bugs? I don't know. I read that and I found it kind of off-putting personally. And from then I've just exclusively worked on BugCrowd. Another thing I like about BugCrowd too is even if you have a duplicate, which is a legitimate bug, you just weren't the first person to find it, they'll still reward you points, which it's not as good as a monetary reward, but it still feels good to know that your efforts were appreciated and you just maybe weren't the quickest. So those were kind of the few things that drew me to BugCrowd originally, and I've just been hunting with them since mainly.
And when you told me that was a really attractive, I guess, feature of BugCrowd, because especially with other programs like HackerOne, I mean, there's like hundreds, maybe even thousands of other people looking at those like initial public programs, and it can get really difficult getting invited to the private ones. I mean, I haven't really touched bug bounties at all, but that's just my impression of it. Have you had like that similar experience?
Yeah. I mean, so there definitely are like pros and cons to each. I know HackerOne kind of offers like a capture the flag you can do to start getting private invites, so that's good. But for me, I just really wanted to focus all of my efforts onto one program mainly, and it was BugCrowd. And so like I have like a pretty good rank, I think, in the 5 months I've been doing it on BugCrowd. And then like I've never received a reward on HackerOne.
So,
yeah.
What are some things that you think newcomers should be aware of before getting into bug bounties?
So I think there are some skills that you learn either through like a college degree or through certification, especially offensive security ones. And that's kind of just studying on your own and being able to learn on your own. Like obviously no one is just going to tell you how to find bugs, because if they knew how to find bugs, they're going to go find the bug themselves. So no one's going to really give it to you on a silver platter like that. But having the initiative to study like the Portswigger Web Academy, read like the Web Application Hacker's Handbook, and just read every single write-up you can find on your own, that will really help you succeed. I mean, even to this day, I still love reading write-ups, and I always learn a new tidbit from everyone. It gives me a fresh perspective, and so I think that really helps me find bugs.
Yeah, and some people come into this field or like just into infosec in general, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna be hacking everything all the time, it's gonna be freaking sweet, bro, right? But there's a lot of reading. There is, like, I read almost every single day, and if I'm not, I fall behind. You feel like that happens with you too during bug bounties?
Definitely, yeah. Like, putting aside all like the new research people like Portswigger Academy are doing, I learn stuff every single day, and I'm fortunate enough to have good mentors in the InfoSec Prep Discord server who like professionals like yourself, like Tiberius, people who can teach me things there. But yeah, I'm learning every single day.
And speaking of learning, what are some learning resources that you found beneficial?
Mm-hmm. So coming off of the OSCP, one of my next certifications was eLearn Security's web penetration tester, because while the OSCP does cover some web attacks, it's not a web hacking certification. So I went that route, and I found that to be a good introduction. If you don't want to purchase that certification, then there's definitely tons of free resources. I think I mentioned the Portswigger Web Academy. I know that's kind of regarded as the Web Application Hacker's Handbook, like the newest version. It's all digital. There are free labs, free to practice in. It's broken down by attack type. So that's definitely a tremendous resource, and you can't beat the price of free. And then otherwise,
you can't beat free at all.
You can't beat free, yeah. Again, just reading people's blogs. If you have a question about a bug type, maybe look at like the payload, all the things, GitHub repo, learn some payloads, then understand why they work and where you'd apply them. And I just think, a combination of all that will set you up nicely.
What about trying CTFs or other challenge type sites? Do you feel like those could help toward bug bounties? Because like even for pen testing, sometimes those resources don't reflect realistic scenarios, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think extra experience isn't going to hurt you, whether it's just experience with Linux, experience with different bug types, like how to use Nmap, scanning a box. Maybe like binary exploitation isn't quite going to help you with web app hacking, but I think it's good to be well-rounded, and doing CTFs is definitely beneficial. I think it's company might be like Command Control. They sometimes do web CTFs that they open to everyone, and those are pretty good. But yeah, it's hard to find a CTF that's geared directly towards web stuff and will help you, one for one. Like you said, it's sometimes unrealistic.
And even sometimes like you'll just come across garbage ones where they're like, find the password in the GIF.
Yeah, it's like,
hey, have you ever found a password in a GIF on a bug bounty?
Not yet. No, I'm still looking. I got to steg decode more images to look for SSH keys and stuff.
Well, we're kind of jumping away from the questions, but in your experience, what do you see some vulnerabilities happening, or like you coming across some vulnerabilities more than others, or do you feel like everything just kind of fits within the OWASP top 10 that you've seen personally?
Some bugs are definitely more prevalent than others. I think I find cross-site scripting the most. I also like to look for that one the most just because I find it pretty fun. But yeah, cross-site scripting I see a lot. And then some stuff I want to get better at, like, is broken authentication and session management types bugs, because there's really no library you can just import that'll fix all your like broken authentication stuff. Like you can import libraries in a web app to fix cross-site scripting and to fix SQL injection, but that one, it's a bit harder. So, I find those bugs a lot. And then I'm trying to get better at broken access control because that's everywhere too. But cross-site scripting is definitely the most.
And then, there's a term that's been going around that I'm not particularly familiar with, but I'm hoping maybe you can shed some light on it. So with bugs in business logic, how do those type of bugs differ from traditional web application vulnerabilities?
Yeah, so I think with traditional web application vulnerabilities, there's not very cut and dry, but there's steps you can take to find them. So if it's like cross-site scripting, you can look for reflected parameters, see how they're reflected on the page, see what's filtered, and then eventually try to get cross-site scripting. But there's really no cookie cutter method when it comes to business logic. I think those ones you really just have to have a solid understanding of how, or like what the application does to start with, and then maybe how roles are assigned or how things are meant to work, and then if there's anything you can do that breaks that workflow. And so they're a lot more customized. I'm not the best at finding them, just for that reason. Like I'm still new, I'm still learning. But yeah, it definitely requires a lot more individualized understanding of that web application.
So from your experiences doing certifications like EWPT or OSCP, you're taught like a methodology of sorts. I feel like this ties in really nicely with that as a follow-up. Do you feel that there's really any major differences between your methodology with bug bounting and what you've learned through certification courses?
I think definitely for the certifications, there's a big emphasis on kind of going slow and steady and just doing the steps, like you do your Nmap, you roll into all this stuff. It's one after another. For me, I kind of find bug bounties slightly different to start. So like when a new program opens, obviously there's that race to be the first person to find the first bug. And so like, you're just doing a quick flyover of everything, and it's really not that thorough. But then kind of after that first day passes, like the hype dies down on a certain program, then you begin that more penetration testing, I guess, methodology, where it's the more thorough examination of all the functionality, all the features. So yeah, in the end, it's kind of the same, but there is definitely that blitz at the beginning to get all the quick low-hanging fruit bugs.
And then for particular tools and techniques, I know there's pretty much a standard tool set for pen testing, but what about for bug bounties? Are there tools that you consistently find yourself using over and over again?
Yeah, so I can talk through a bit of what my general workflow, I guess, would look like. So say a program appeared and it was a wide scope program, so all subdomains were in scope of company.com. I'd start up doing subdomain enumeration. So there's like a nice bash script I found on GitHub called like sub.sh. And really what it does is it runs all those different subdomain enumeration tools like sublister, find domain, subfinder, all of those ones. And then kind of finds the domains that are still alive. So that's really what I do for subdomain enumeration. After that, I use dir search for directory brute forcing. I know some people like GoBuster or Dirbuster. I just like dir search, but they really all function pretty much the same. And then after that, it's really just Burp Suite for me. I don't use any like fancy frameworks or anything. It's really just a lot of clicking around and looking at requests in Burp Suite and clicking around some more. Maybe use SQL map if I see a parameter that looks sketchy. Like if it says query and has SQL syntax, then that's definitely going to get SQL mapped. But yeah, it's really just a lot of Burp Suite for me.
That's awesome. And, I feel like some people might find that aspect of bug bounties more attractive than trying to do like traditional pen testing or like even red team work like I do, because if I run some of these tools and I don't fine tune them, like alerts will start going off, my boss will get notifications, I'll get yelled at, like the world starts falling apart. So it seems like doing bug bounties might be a lot more, I guess, liberal in that sense. Do you feel like there's anything that in terms of scoping or legal that people should be aware of?
I think Burp Suite can definitely be dangerous, especially if you have like the pro version and you can run intruder with like 100 threads or something, or if you're just blasting active scan, like, definitely don't do that. Like
authenticated burp spider.
Yeah, you could accidentally delete things or post things, or if you like SQL map a post request or something, you could just fill a bunch of garbage with all the payloads it tries. So there definitely is a bit of that risk. You do have to understand how the tools work and what they're doing, what they look like. Yeah.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the Axiom project by Pryoc? Have you ever tried using it?
So I've looked into it a bit, and my understanding, I'm probably going to end up oversimplifying it because I personally haven't used it. It's a way to set up like a VPS or something, so it's almost out of the box, ready to go for bug bounty hunting. I believe that's kind of the gist of it. It installs all the essential tools for bug bounty hunting, which we've discussed are kind of different than those for actual red teaming or penetration testing. So no, I personally haven't used it yet. I haven't really used any of those. There's a lot of fancy frameworks and stuff out there now. It's really just, I have a MacBook Pro. I have it set up with Burp Suite and the few tools I use from the terminal. So yeah, like dir search, stuff like that. But I'm not saying it's not a good tool. It's probably really good, and I'm probably missing out on a lot by not using it. But I'm new to this, so I'm sticking to the basics right now for me.
Yeah, and it definitely seemed like a new spin on how to deploy infrastructure, especially for doing external assessments. So it kind of got my attention a while back. I haven't really had an opportunity to use it yet, but being able to leverage different technologies in weird ways is always a good thing.
Yeah.
So when you go through a bug bounty, let's say you find a bug and you've written up a POC for it. Report writing for pen testing can be a lot different than one might expect for a bug bounty report. I know I've seen a couple of public ones, and they were dramatically different than what I would submit for a pen test. What are some steps that you take to ensure a client gets the best information possible while minimizing the potential for this isn't a bug, this is a feature type of response?
Yeah, so definitely the quality does vary widely. I've certainly read some publicly disclosed ones that were just very poorly written and kind of embarrassing. But like I mentioned before, I like to make mine have a description where I describe the bug. From that, I literally just copy and paste from like Portswigger Academy, and I cite it, and then I talk about the impact. I try to tailor that a bit. So if it's like cross-site scripting, obviously the impact is pretty well known. And then I go into steps to reproduce, and that's where it varies a lot for me. If it is something as simple as reflected cross-site scripting, I'm maybe only going to write up 1 or 2 sentences that'll be navigate to this link, and I'll include the link with the payload and then a picture. So it could be as simple as that, while still kind of keeping it professional with the description and the impact and the remediation. Or if it's a more involved bug, I try to break it down by steps. You need to log in, you need to pre-configure this, or like understand that this is how it would occur if this was set up. And I really just try to make it reproducible. And one thing that's actually worked for me is I'll submit the bug. BugCrowd takes kind of 2 to 3 days on average, I find, to triage a bug. The next day, I'll go back and I'll read my steps and I'll reproduce that bug. And if I find anything's changed, if I find I forgot something, I'll append that as a comment because they see the comments as well. So I find that has really helped kind of expedite the process. It keeps them from having to ask questions. They can put like a blocker on the researcher to provide more information. So I've kind of been burned too many times, like with insufficient reporting. So at this point now, I reproduce my own steps the next day, and that's helped me a lot write better reports.
Yeah, I wish I could do some of these things for my reports. Be like, you need to add more information. Nope, we are ending it right there. Not enough info. But it seems like there are a lot of similarities between pen testing and bug bounty work. But I'm curious, in your opinion, where do you see some shortfalls in the current bug bounty process? From either finding the bugs to interacting with customers. Do you see any gaps in that entire process that could be filled better, or maybe reworked in a better way? What are your thoughts?
Again, my experience in like the professional world is limited, as non-existent. I don't hold a pen testing job, but I think bug bounties definitely are not a replacement for a full penetration test. I think it's a good supplemental thing. It's always good to have that second set of eyes, or in this case, like 1,000 sets of eyes to go over it and find things. No one's perfect. No penetration testing firm or team is going to catch every single bug. And so I do think
big facts. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think it's a good additional measure, but it's by no means the only measure you should be taking. Like, it's not a replacement for a penetration test. It's not a replacement for having your own internal security team if that's what your company has.
Public programs can provide great experience, but oftentimes these programs will have already been assessed by several hundred or several thousand people, like we've kind of talked about earlier. What can one do, or what can someone do to improve their success or chances of getting invited to a private program?
Yeah, so in response to I agree, like a lot of the public programs are really picked over because anyone can just start hacking on them. But that being said, new subdomains are put up for those wide scope programs, and new code is added. So with a little bit of beginner's luck, like you can still find bugs in public programs that have been going on for years. And then in regards to getting private invites, I know at least on BugCrowd, I've seen them mention it on Twitter before, that the triagers actually also consider the quality of your report. So even if it's a duplicate, they consider the quality, and that can help you get private invites. So again, kind of going back to the recurring theme, like put the effort into your report and it'll pay dividends in the future.
I didn't know that. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I learned that it was like a month or two ago. I learned that, and I was like, I'm going to start increasing the quality of my reports.
I guess overall between the interactions that you've had with different companies, have they overall been pleasant experiences, or have there been maybe more negative experiences than positive ones? So what's your perception on that, between the interaction between the bounty hunter and the company? Do you think it's mostly overall positive, or do you think that there's maybe some gaps that can be filled?
In my experience, I've actually found it to be very positive. I think one reason I find that is I stick to the platforms. I stick to like Synap and BugCrowd. I don't do any of like that. I know there's a company called like Open Bug Bounty where you can hunt bugs on any website, and they're kind of an intermediary. Like I don't do any of that. I don't do any programs that are off those platforms. So I think staying on those platforms, you'll have good experiences because the triagers are there to kind of act as an intermediary, and they keep everything, in check. That being said, my only negative experience I've had a few bugs. I think like 2 or 3 bugs now that have been triaged for 3, maybe 4 months with no reply from the company. So I don't know if they just kind of forgot they had a BugCrowd program or what. But that's like the only complaint I have.
Well, if that's the only complaint that you have, that's definitely on the company, and that's not, the bug hunting or bug bounty process in general. So if that's your only negative criticism, I think that means that there's a lot of good things going for bug bounties.
Definitely, yeah.
So becoming a member of the Synap Red Team, that's a pretty big achievement. They don't accept everybody. What's a normal engagement like for you under Synap, or how does it differ from other bug bounty programs in general?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, I can briefly touch on the application process to Synap, because it is kind of a little bit different than a normal bug bounty program where you log in and you have an account and you start. It starts by submitting your resume, almost like a job. And I don't remember the exact percentages. They're on the site, but I think half of people from there move on to, they have like a 7-day challenge where you're given a few challenges, you have to solve them and write up a report on them. If you pass that, you move on to the interview. And then after that, it's like a background check and onboarding, if you get through all those things. So definitely a bit different of a process to get onto the Synap Red Team versus just BugCrowd or HackerOne. And then in terms of the engagements, so they do a few things differently at Synap. For one, you're always connected to the Synap VPN when you're working. I can kind of see that's a good feature for a company. They know what IP address all this traffic is going to be coming from, versus some public program that's going to have 1,000 different people just whacking their site. You can't tell who's good, who's bad. So that's kind of a nice thing to do. One of the things I like most is they have what they call missions. So a Synap mission, the payout is maybe $25 or $50, but what you're doing is just kind of like a NIST compliance check almost. So it'll be like, okay, test the lockout policy on this website's login functionality. And then you just reply like, yes, it's good, or no, there's no lockout policy. And you write up a mini report, and that's it. So I really like doing those on Synap. But other than that, it's pretty similar to standard bug bounty platforms once you're in.
Have you had any cool experiences while being under them that you wouldn't have got under BugCrowd, or doing things on your own?
Some of the things that are different as the clients they have are, I guess I can just say, like, more interesting. Some of them are a lot more interesting. So it's kind of cool to hack on those websites that you normally you wouldn't even dream of touching. They also do different types of assessments. So whereas most bug bounty websites are all web assessments, they have some mobile assessments, which I'm not good at. I haven't started doing, but they do offer a lot more mobile assessments, as well as host assessments, where you might actually be VPN'd into like an internal kind of network and assessing hosts that way.
What are some books? Who are some people that people getting into bug bounties should follow? You have any recommendations for them?
For books, I think the only book I've read is the Web Application Hacker's Handbook. Well, I should say I'm still reading it, because it's about an 850-page textbook almost to get through. But I'm
It's a
forcing
big
myself.
book.
It is, yeah. It's very thick. I'm forcing myself to read it. I've picked up some good fundamental stuff that being self-taught like I am, like I didn't really know. So that's definitely just a solid resource. And then as for people to follow, there's like the classic people like Stoke, Nahamsek, I believe you say it, Jason Haddix on Twitter. Just kind of those big names are good. And then I think eventually you'll kind of find your own people. It's tough because some people on Twitter, they don't really have any good advice for you. They just want to brag. They just want to say, yay, I was awarded $1,000 on HackerOne. Like, that's not useful to me. You want to find the people who will share their blogs, talking about kind of what they looked for, what they saw, how they exploited it, and those are the takeaways you want, because that'll help you understand in a future scenario. Okay, like I've read about this before. I know what to do. So yeah, just kind of trial and error to find those good people who are putting out legitimate information and not just trying to flex on Twitter.
Yeah, and I've been doing a lot of this kind of stuff since I was a teenager, and definitely within the last 3 to 4 years for sure, there has been a lot more content, a lot more people sharing all of the techniques and stuff that they find. So it now is probably the best time to get into bug bounties or pen testing. Like right now is the best time, because there's people out there like you who are willing to step up and be like, hey, these are my experiences. This is the stuff that you can expect to go through when you're pursuing bug bounties. And then there's people out there who are willing to get after it, and they're like, hey, I made a buttload of money doing this, and these are all of the steps that I took to find this bug on this program. So I think a lot of people will really appreciate hearing a more long form perspective of someone that's actually out there doing it.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I want to emphasize too is I've only been doing this for maybe 5 months. I think I'm entering my 6th month. So like if you're thinking about starting, if you've known about bug bounties for more than 6 months, like, why haven't you started? The best practice you'll get is just kind of getting out there, looking at different websites and trying different things. One thing I actually did that I kind of recommend, and I think it worked out well, is when I started, I think I mentioned I was only going to do 30 days. And so I got a trial of BERT Pro, because I believe it's 30 days. And I said, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try this every day. I have BERT Pro. There's no excuse I could think of that I could put myself down. And in these 30 days, I'm going to make enough money to buy a full year of BERT Pro. And if I can do that, then I know that I'm good enough for bug bounty. So I think that's kind of a good challenge for anyone who thinking of getting into it, because you're going to learn a lot. Like just reading the burp output, like I've learned stuff, like I've learned about different bugs or different misconfigurations, and just that there's no replacement for that hands-on practice. That's the best practice you're going to get, is actually doing it.
Yeah, and some people might look at bug bounties as just a way to make some extra cash, but if you really pay attention to what you're doing, you can probably build some pretty good connections at a lot of these companies through doing it too. So that might be another thing that would attract people to bug bounties, is just simply the connections that you can make through doing it.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
So what's next for you? Projects, certifications, secret bug bounty programs? Are you about to break into the Pentagon?
I wish. That'd be a cool program. So I think what's next is, in terms of certifications, I know Offensive Security just kind of talked about their releasing those new certifications to replace OSCE. So I might take the one that covers advanced penetration testing whenever that comes out. I think it was later this year. But other than that, I plan to just continue, with school, work on finishing up a degree, and doing bug bounty on the side until I can actually get out there and hopefully secure a real job like you, do some cool red teaming stuff, or anything like that, AppSec penetration testing, anything. So.
Well, I really appreciate having you on today. Where can people find you? Where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm sure we can put some links in the description. I have Twitter. I'm not too active, but you can reach me there. I have a blog if you're interested in reading that. Additionally, you can hop into the InfoSec Prep Discord server. I'm a moderator there. I go under the name Homebrewer because I like to brew. But yeah, so I can be reached there. Those are probably the best ways.
All right, like I said, really appreciate having you on. Any last words of advice for people?
I guess just everyone thinks there's some big secret and that all the bug bounty hunters are hiding from you. You always ask for like your tips and all that. There's no secret. Like there's no big industry secret that people are hiding from you. I can attest to that because I just started recently. Just get out there and learn. Oh, my dogs are coming to say hi right at the end. Oh no, both of them. All right. Wow. All right. Yeah, just get out there, do bug bounties.
We're definitely leaving that in the blooper reel.
Oh yeah, that was like on cue almost. They said, "Hey, pay attention." Anyway, yeah, like I was saying, just get out there, practice, and if you put in the time, if you put in the energy, you will find success.
Well, thanks again for joining. Everybody watching this, just keep in mind, pen testing is just one side of information security. There's a whole world of other things out there that you can pursue, bug bounties being one of them. And there's more than one way to get from point A to point B. So if you've ever thought about breaking into the Pentagon while drinking beer, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead, hit those like and subscribe buttons. Go check out Chris's links. They'll be in the description below. And thank you so much. We'll catch you all in the next one.